Hello, my name is Jodi Allen, and I'm excited to be spending this Finding the Truth on Friday with you. I'm known around Sojourner Truth House as Dr. Jodi. I am a doctor of nursing practice and a family nurse practitioner. I teach and I direct the family nurse practitioner program at Purdue University Northwest in Hammond. That's actually how I came to volunteer at Sojourner close to 6 years ago, and then last year I became a board member. So I bring undergraduate students to Sojourner. They will check blood pressures on clients, on community members. They'll check blood sugars, and they'll educate them about just ways that they can be more healthy. I also bring graduate students, they're nurse practitioner students, to Sojourner, and they'll do a bunch of things. They'll assess clients, they'll refer them to other healthcare providers, they'll teach them classes about a variety of health issues. And then I myself independently come to Sojourner and I will see clients. I'll work with their case managers to kind of get their health back on track, so to speak. So I'm often asked why I am so willing to volunteer with this vulnerable population, and much of that is rooted in removing barriers and removing assumptions about this population especially. I'm a firm believer that people that have assumptions, that can lead to stigma, discrimination, even racism. So I identify in a lot of ways and empathize with a lot of the clients at Sojourner because of the layers of stigma and discrimination that they've endured. So just a few stories about things that have happened to me as far as discrimination or racism. I am in fact Hispanic, specifically Mexican. So I grew up in Chicago and then the south suburbs of Chicago, a very culturally diverse area. Never even had an inclination of racism or discrimination really that was done to me per se until we decided to move to Northwest Indiana. And it was there that I remember I was 10 or 11 and I went with my mom and dad to a place where they were building new construction houses. So I went and I wanted to check out what room I might have, and the salesman was very nice, showed us around, no issues, very interested in building a house there. So when it came time for my dad to fill out the contact information card, name, address, phone number, all that stuff, he filled it out, and I remember the salesman picking up the card and reading the last name, and I saw his whole demeanor change. And I was young at the time, and I remember thinking it was really odd because I felt like he looked fearful after just reading the card, and I thought, well, that's strange. I mean, I'm short, I'm only 5'3", and my dad's only a couple inches taller than I am, so I never thought my dad was very menacing by any means. But the salesman's demeanor definitely changed. So we left, and he said, oh, we'll call you soon, get something set up to start building. A month had gone by, a month and a half had gone by. My dad never heard anything. So finally he called, and he had to get in touch with the builder because the salesman would not return his phone calls. So he got in touch with the builder and explained the situation. He was very apologetic. And they got the ball rolling to build the house. But I remember asking my dad, why would someone not call you back? I noticed, he changed a little bit after the contact information on the card. And my dad said, well, some people don't want to live by Mexicans. I thought that was weird, but okay. I was young, didn't think much about it after that. So fast forward, we build the house, and I start school in Indiana. It was a smaller school. I was in 7th grade. It went all the way up from 6th to 12th grade. So walking through the halls, and I started hearing names I had never heard before, words I had never heard before. So I came home and asked my dad, have you heard this word? Have you heard this name? And his first question was, where did you hear those words? And so I explained it was kids at school. And he explained what they were. They were derogatory terms for Hispanics, especially Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, things like that. And we talked about it for a little while, and he basically told me, ignore them. You are not what they're calling you, but regardless of what they're saying, be kind. So names continued, unfortunately, for several years after that, off and on, but I just got a little bit of a thicker skin. I remember my dad saying that the kids probably didn't even realize what they were saying. And as I got older, and they stopped a little bit, and then every now and again a name would rise back up that they would call me. It made me think, I don't think they really know what they're saying, because even just some of the ways that they use the words, they didn't seem right. So, and then of course as an adult, I realized that they probably learned them from family or friends or heard them on TV or something like that. But it did kind of impress upon me how much racism, discrimination is taught and learned. So as an adult, I did experience some racism, discrimination, just, people introducing me to other people. And I can remember one instance where someone was shaking my hand and the person was introducing me, and they got, Jodi Garcia out, and then in the middle, after they heard Garcia, they let my hand go and kind of shook it off and turned around and walked away in disgust. So, some of those things still sting. I don't get it as much anymore because I'm married and have my husband's non-Hispanic name. But it doesn't mean that I am still not affected by it. So that really kind of spurred me on to what I do now. And being a Hispanic woman with a doctorate in healthcare allows me to represent a lot of the underrepresented. So that's important to me. So that's a big part of why I do what I do at Sojourner. So when I started seeing clients at Sojourner, I had these grand ideas that I would sit and, I'd come to the site, and then clients and the women would be, just knocking down the door to come and see me, and I could assess them and talk to them about their health, and it was going to be great. And yes, these were assumptions on my part. I talk about, not assuming. I was assuming that this is what would happen, and it didn't. I sat there for months, and they were very friendly. Everyone was very friendly, asking how classes were going, how my life was going, but no one wanted me to do anything healthcare related with them. So I thought that was odd. It took several months of just consistency, and then the clients really opened up. I think that's a big part of working with the homeless, is that consistency. They lack that so much. So that's a big key just with caring for them, is just being that consistent part of their life. So of course, after all that, I thought, I wonder why it took so long for them to really open up to me and being willing to access care when it was right here. So I had to do a doctoral project. So I chose to do my doctoral project on that, kind of sifting through any information, research-based, that I could find since the inception of databases about what experiences the women were having, homeless women were having, when it came to interacting with healthcare providers. It was terrible. Everything that I found was heartbreaking, frustrating, and frankly a little embarrassing as a healthcare provider. The main theme that we found was that healthcare providers made homeless women feel like second-class citizens. So first of all, no one, regardless of their social situation or race or gender, should be made to feel that way, ever. No one should be made to feel that way, but especially by someone who is supposed to be helping you. So that was very frustrating. What was even more disheartening was some of this stuff I just couldn't believe, so I wanted to verify it with a lot of the clients that I see at Sojourner. So I just asked them, besides me, how have your other experiences been with healthcare providers? And they echoed everything that was in the research, that the healthcare providers were more focused on how they became homeless. They wanted to know if it was because of drugs. Again, all of these assumptions that were just completely unnecessary by anyone, let alone, again, someone who was there to help them. So that was very eye-opening to me, and that kind of led to how I now approach my interactions with a lot of the clients at Sojourner. And I can see that that's impacting them and their future interactions with healthcare providers. I'm able to bring students and teach them how to appropriately interact. So I've seen that now when the clients are seeing other healthcare providers besides me, that they're having better interactions. So that was a plus that came out of that. But another theme that we found was the inequity of healthcare. And you might have heard that term before, inequity. You might have also heard inequality. They're two different things. So inequality is really specific to different circumstances that people have, where inequity is focused more on the fairness. How do we get people fairly out of the circumstances that they're in? So really common example that you might see is, say I'm trying to look over a fence. I'm only 5'3", I'm short. Say the fence is 6'2", right, tall. And say the person next to me is 5'8". So with inequality, to make people equal, we each get a box, the same size box to stand on so that we can see over the fence. Well, what if the box is only 2 inches high or 3 inches high? The person who's 5'9" might be able to stand on their tiptoes then and see over. If I stand on my tiptoes, I still can't see anything. So to make fair and equitable healthcare for people is to give them different size boxes, right? I get a taller box, or maybe a 3-step box, so that I can climb up and see over the fence. So that's what we found with the theme, is that inequity, that unfairness that these clients were and are experiencing. I'm a firm believer that home is a form of healthcare. So by helping a lot of these women acquire housing, they have then ability to rest and ability to heal. Imagine, you come home from work and you're just not feeling well, so you want to lay down. What if you don't have a place to do that? What if you have a wound on your leg that just really needs to be cleaned regularly, washed, dressed regularly? How hard is that if you don't have a home to do that in? Food insecurity is a big part of inequity, and we see that a lot at Sojourner because of the housing situation in Gary. Even when they're moving to other sites around Northwest Indiana. I mean, I know here in the city that I live, I can think of 4 grocery stores that are nearby-ish that I can get food from. But we're looking for them to have healthy food, right? So fresh produce, things like that. How hard is that to get when you're homeless? How hard is that to get when you have a home? It's not easy, it's not cheap to have healthy foods. Transportation is a big issue, and that also contributes to the inequity. I have a car, I can drive maybe 30, 45 minutes to where I need to acquire health care. But what if I didn't have a car? What if there's no bus system? What if there is a bus system, but I don't have the money for a bus pass? A big example that I can use to kind of tie all of this together is if I have a client that I'm seeing who's diabetic and she needs labs done, how can I get her to get her labs done if there's no transportation? If I don't know the results of her labs, how can we better improve her blood sugars? How can I know what to recommend as far as strict diet? How can I get her medication? How can she get to the pharmacy to get her medication? So you can see that all of these little things can trickle down and really impact someone's health. How can they work if their blood sugars are super high? So this just further impacts, and this is a big part of the issues that these women are having. There is most definitely racial and social lot of this inequity in predominantly underserved cities and towns, and predominantly where there's a high percentage of minorities. This is just the facts. It's important that we open our eyes to this so that we can contribute to making a change. So really, ultimately, that's what I want to impress upon you. Once we know better, we do better, right? So a lot of people ask, how can we impact change? What can I do? What can we do? If I can encourage you to reach out to legislation, whether it's local in your town, county, district, it's important to know what your legislator's plan of action is to limit and eliminate these barriers of inequity that a lot of our population experience. If they don't have a plan, they better get a plan, right? You can come in and talk to them about some ideas that you might have, work with the community to make that happen. That's huge. Volunteering is huge, whether it's your time, whether it's your knowledge, whether it's volunteering some money to help an organization. That's hugely important. If you're unable to do any of those things, then at minimum, you can change yourself. You can invite change, whether it's via prayer or just looking to really improve upon yourself. Every day before I go and take care of clients, wherever it might be, I always ask that love and kindness and peace and mercy follow me and go with me when I take care of them. Those are things that you can do. Those things, asking those things will change you, and then you're modeling change for others. So that's it. That's me in a nutshell. A little bit about what I've experienced. That's a little bit about what I've seen and worked on as far as the health and the returning to health and wholeness that we have for the goal of the clients of Sojourner Truth House. It's Friday. We've made it to another Friday, so that's an amazing thing these days. Thanks for listening. Thanks for spending some time, and have a blessed weekend.